Great. So I hope that you enjoy the website and the material and the practices that I sent you last week, and you were practicing for the first task during this weekend. And now, as I say, it's time for us to move to a new topic. So, well, as I was mentioning, thank you very much for having joined. And well, we are live now, and we can start with our class. Okay. So, having finalized then with the first task of the speaking section, it's time, of course, dear students, Romanev and Selena, to move on to, as I say, the second task of the speaking section. That is actually very interesting and very much fruitful to discuss. Well, I see that somebody else is joining, so just let us give her some seconds so we can start. Okay. Just a sec here. Here. And here. Okay. Great. So thank you, Claudia, for joining us. We were waiting for you. Great. It's time for us to start. So I was mentioning to your classmates that in today's class we're going to be discussing a very important topic. We're going to be still discussing the speaking section, yes, but we're going to discuss a new area of the speaking section. That is the task number 2. Now let us remember very rapidly that last week we said the speaking section is divided, as we remember, into 4 different tasks, right? We said that we have 4 different tasks, and the only thing that we mean when we say tasks is 4 different questions, right? Basically, tasks are synonyms for questions. So here you are, as we discussed last time, we have 4 tasks in the speaking section, and last week, if you remember, we dedicated several of our classes to discuss the first task of the speaking section. That was the independent question. We discussed that in that type of question, you had to be very personal. You have to give your opinion about a very controversial topic. You needed to defend your position. We discuss different things, right? I am in a taxi on my way to work. Sorry. No, it's okay, dear Claudia. It's okay. Don't worry. Thank you very much. Okay, no, it's okay. You can listen. We're not going to be practicing today, by the way. We're going to practice tomorrow. So today is just the theoretical explanation. So you can listen to what I say. Very good. So now, as I said, last week we discussed the first task of the speaking section. We know all the details about this task. We know how to respond it, how to structure the response, everything. Now it's time for us to discuss the second task of the speaking section. Now, remember that last week, I told you that from the second task until the 4th task of the speaking section, these 3 questions, the second one, the third one, and the 4th one, are all of them of the same kind. All of them are integrated questions, okay? So as you can see, the title for this second task is Integrated Speaking Task, okay? Now, let me explain what I mean by that. When we say integrated, it's basically that you're going to be, in this case, relying on material that ETS, remember the company that organizes and displays the exam, you're going to be relying on material, topics, passages that ETS gives you in order to respond the question you're going to be facing. In this case, dear students, in the second task, you are not going to be able to rely on your own opinion, your own information, data, and knowledge in order to respond the questions. Sadly, your opinion is not welcome anymore. You are not able in this question to say your opinion. But in this case, the only thing you have to do, and listen very well to what I'm saying, is to summarize some topics, some passages that ETS is going to give you. And that's the reason why, as you can see here, look at my screen, I posted here the picture of a journalist, right? As you can see, there you have a very common journalist with with a pocket agenda. There you have it with some microphones, a pencil, right? What journalists normally do, right? Journalists go look for news, they write down some information, they interview people, etc., etc. Now, why did I post this picture? The reason is very simple, actually, because remember that journalists, when they are working, let's say, correctly, what they do is to look for information, especially from different sources, right? And they take notes on that information. For example, a journalist investigating, I don't know, a particular crime. So the journalists will go to different places. They will interview several people, several witnesses, etc., etc. and the journalist take notes, right? Takes note on that, and goes to another person, let's say to the brother of the victim, and asks some questions and takes notes. Now, when the journalist is working, right, with all that information he has collected from different sources, the only thing that the journalist does is to summarize that information, right? To summarize what the witnesses said about the crime, what the brother of the victim said about the crime. He summarizes that information and he presents that summary to his audience, right? That is what journalists do. Journalists do not share their opinion, right? They don't say, for example, oh, I believe personally that this crime is actually, I don't know, nonsensical. Or they don't say, for example, I believe this crime is actually the brother's fault, right? They don't say what they think. When journalists are working correctly, what they do is to summarize information and to present that information just as they receive it, but as I say, summarized, right? And notice as well that very good journalists, when they are working correctly, they never change the information. They never alter the information. They never make any alteration or change or disruption to the information. And that is something that you should actually as well here imitate, okay? Because as I say, what is going to happen in this question is that you're going to receive two information sources. You're going to receive a reading passage, as we're going to discuss now, and then you're going to listen to two people discussing the same topic on a conversation. And your only task here, your only, let's say, job will be to summarize both materials, no more than that. So as I say, please always remember that in this case, you're going to be a journalist. Identify this task with a journalist, because at the end, your work will always be, as I mentioned, to say, well, what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to listen to this person or to these people, and I'm going to read this material that ETS is going to give you, and I'm going to summarize both materials without changing the information as I receive it. Okay, that's what you have to do. Very easy. Now, let us read what we have here on this slide. It says, for this task, you will be reading a short written passage that is 80 to 100 words long. It is mostly an announcement about a change happening to campus as a shift in class schedules or a new bus service. So as I said, it's a very simple thing, because you're going to be reading, in this case, your students, a passage, a reading passage that is very short, as you can see, from 80 to 100 words long. And it's going to be mostly about, well, an announcement or a change happening in a university, in a campus. For example, a shift in class schedules or a new bus service, things that are very much common, very much daily, things that are not complicated, okay? It's going to be, as I say, a passage that is super short and about a very, very much simple topic, okay? Now, after you read this passage that, as I say, it's always going to be discussing a topic related to a university activity or to a university change, then you're going to listen to a conversation, of course, through your headphones, right? That's what I told you in the speaking section. These headphones are very important, not only for speaking, they're also very important because you have to listen to material. So after you read this passage that, as I say, it's very short, then you're going to listen to a conversation of two people discussing the same announcement or the same topic you read. So for example, imagine that in your passage, imagine for a while that you receive a topic about a change they are doing on the bus service of the university. They are saying that now they are going to discontinue the bus service, and the bus service is not going to be available anymore. Imagine that that is the case, okay? So when you come to the conversation, what are these people going to be discussing? The people in your conversation. They are going to be discussing the exact same topic. They are going to be discussing this change of this bus service. In your conversation, the people you're going to listen to are going to be students from the same university where this event is taking place. That is to say, they are going to be students from the university in which this bus service is about to be discontinued. So they are going to be discussing this topic. They're going to say, hey, did you listen that the bus service is going to be discontinued and it's not going to be available any longer? And the other person is going to say, yeah, I listened to that. What do you think? And they're going to discuss their opinion, okay, about this issue. Now, one of the speakers, because as I say, in these conversations, you will always have two speakers, no more than that, nor less than that, two speakers. One of the speakers, dear students, will be expressing his or her personal opinion about this particular new or topic that you read about in the reading passage, okay? And the other one, dear students, the other one is going to be a person who, let's say, never says anything relevant. And that's why I always say that in a conversation, you're going to find two types of speakers. One, the main speaker, the most important one, the most important person, let's say, to the conversation. And the other person, it's merely a secondary speaker. The main speaker, as I say, is that person in the conversation that expresses his opinion, says, hey, I think that this is actually a bad idea. Or says, well, actually, I think that I agree with this. It's a fantastic change. The person is going to, as I say, offer an explanation of his opinion. And something that you're going to find very interesting is that this person is not going to merely say his opinion. He's also going to defend it. And I know that this, of course, is very familiar to you because it's exactly what you did in the first task, right? You offer your opinion, and then you also defended your opinion, right? You said why you believe that way. And this is exactly what this main speaker in the conversation is going to do. He's going to listen, he's going to say his opinion, he's going to state his opinion, and afterwards he's going to offer a defense of his opinion. He's going to say why he thinks that way. He's going to offer some reasons, some illustrations, just as you did. So you're going to listen to this person, and it's going to be super easy to identify him because, as I say, there is only one person in the conversation that normally says his opinion. That's the main speaker, okay? He also defends his opinion, as I say. That's the main speaker. Now, the other person, as I say, it's a secondary speaker because he never actually adds anything relevant to the conversation. The only thing this secondary speaker does is to initiate the conversation. He says, hey, did you listen about this? He's the person who starts the conversation. And then this secondary speaker, what he does is to, let's say, to assent to the information. What do I mean? For example, if the main speaker says, dude, I believe that this is a bad idea, the secondary speaker would respond, oh, yeah, that's true. Or if, for example, the main speaker says, I believe that this is a bad idea because many people are not going to be able to arrive to the campus, then the secondary speaker would say, are you sure? He never says anything relevant. The only thing he does is to respond, like to very mechanically respond to the information the main speaker says. He never actually adds his opinion. As I say, he merely supports the conversation, allows the conversation to continue, but he never says anything, okay? And it's very important for you to identify the difference between these two speakers, because what is your job? As I told you, what is your job in all these tasks? Your job is to summarize both materials, the reading passage and also the conversation you listen to. No more than that, it's super easy. You have to summarize, as I say, the reading passage that is going to discuss a university topic, and then you have to summarize as well the conversation of these two students discussing the topic. No more than that. Now, in your summary, when you are summarizing the conversation, always make sure that your summary is focused or centered on the main speaker, not in the secondary speaker. Actually, dear students, my recommendation would be not even mentioning the second speaker or the secondary speaker. Focus merely on what the main speaker has said. If you agree with this change, or if you disagree with the change, why he believed this was the correct idea, why he believed this was a terrible idea. Concentrate on the main speaker. Don't talk about the secondary speaker because, as I say, it's irrelevant to the conversation. Okay? So remember, your job to summarize the reading passage and to summarize the conversation you listen to. Now, of course, you have some time in order to do so, right? In order to read the passage, dear students, to read it, okay, just to read the passage, you have 45 seconds. That is, as I say, a very good time because it's just 80 to 100 words long. It's a very short passage. You're not going to have any trouble to read it, especially because, as I say, the topic of this passage is always going to be very easy because there are things like related to changes in the university, about professors, about students, activities. I mean, things that are super easy to understand, okay? So you're going to read this passage and you have 45 seconds to do so, okay? Then you're going to listen to this conversation, and this conversation is going to last for approximately 1 minute, something like that, okay? So it's very important that in this case, dear students, when you are listening to this recording, to this conversation, right, that you're going to listen to through your headphones, you have to take notes, okay? And this is what I told you when we were in our first class. Taking notes is going to be a very important skill that we're going to be perfecting throughout this classes, okay? We're gonna perfect that skill because taking notes is essential not only on the speaking section, as you can see, it's important in the listening section, most importantly, of course. It's important in the writing section. So basically, you're gonna take notes during the entire exam, okay? So as I say, when you're listening to this conversation, certainly you have to take notes because if you don't, you're not going to be able to listen to this audio clip twice. By the way, the reading, you just read it once. The clip, that is to say the conversation, you just listen to that audio clip once, no more than that. Even if you, for example, didn't understand something very well, you don't have the chance to repeat the audio listening. You merely can listen to this conversation once. Therefore, if you want to remember the information that is discussed there, what these two speakers are saying, of course, you have to take your piece of paper, your pencil, or your whiteboard, right? If you are taking the home IBT version, and you have to do so, well, you have to write down on that whiteboard as we have discussed, right? But the point is that when you are listening to the conversation, always always take your notes, okay? It's very important. And now in this case, maybe you're wondering, how much time am I going to have in order to prepare and respond to my response? You're going to have 30 seconds, in this case, dear students, to prepare your response. As you can see, they are giving you the previous time, but doubled, because in the last exercise, in the last task, you merely had how much? 15 seconds, right? In order to prepare your response. Now you have 30 seconds. They are giving you more time to prepare your response. Good. And now to respond, that is to say, to offer your summary of the reading passage and also the conversation, you're going to have 60 seconds. That is to say, 1 minute instead of 45 seconds as you had in the first task of the speaking section. So as you can see here, they're giving you more time, of course, because it's a little bit lengthy. In this case, the task, you have to read something, you have to listen something. You're going to spend more time with this task, okay? So as you can see, your preparation time augments to 30 seconds. Your response time augments to 60 seconds. Fantastic. That is exactly what you have to do, okay? Well, now, before you make your questions, that I know that you may have some questions, let me please show you this on the simulator in order for you to catch all the details that maybe you are, of course, wondering about, or if you have some question or concern about, let's say, the graphical thing of this part, how is this going to look on the exam? Don't worry, let me please show you that here on the simulator, and then you can, of course, make your questions with regard to the task, okay? So let me open this, here I am. Fantastic. So look at this. So when you come to the second task, first thing you're going to be seeing is this, some instructions for the task, right? You don't have to read them, of course, because you know what to do, right? That's the reason why you're taking these classes. You know what to do. So you just can press next, okay? This button is always there. And then, okay, so when the second task starts, when the second question starts, this is what you're going to be seeing on your screen. As you can see here, you have, well, some context, okay? Because the reading passage is this one. Maybe you are thinking, oh, that's the reading passage. No, this is not the reading passage. This is the reading passage, this one here. Now, this here, that is, as I say, above the reading passage, is some context for you to know more or less what you're going to be reading about. Some context, no more than that. It says, for example, let us read together. The university has decided to change its transportation options for students. Read the university website's announcement about the decision. You will have 45 seconds to read the announcement. Begin reading now. As you can see, they also tell you how much time you have for reading, right? And here you have the topic. As you can see in this case, this reading passage is about university bus service discontinued, right? Just as I gave you the illustration. In this case, well, the topic would be about how this university is planning to, well, to discontinue this service, okay? We're not going to read this because I have another, I have another, let's say, illustration to show you that we're going to read and discuss. But just as you can see here, this is the reading passage. This is how it's going to look like on the exam. As you can see, a very, very short passage. And as I say, about a very trivial and simple topic, nothing to worry about, okay? Then when you read this, oh, of course, when you see this on your screen, there's going to be a chronometer, right? Like this one. And that is going to be counting backwards, of course, right? And it's going to be like 45, 44, excuse me, 44, 44, 43, 42, 41, 40, 39, 38, 37, like, as I say, going backwards. So you have 45 seconds to read this. Now, if you finish, dear students, reading this before the 45 seconds that, as I say, are going to be displayed on a chronometer on your screen, what you can do, let's say if you finalize reading before the 45 seconds are over, my recommendation wouldn't be pressing next, okay? Because what some people do when they finalize reading and the 45 seconds are not over, so for example, they have, I don't know, 15 seconds, some remaining 15 seconds or something, they press the button next, because when you press next, and you also have this option on the exam, by the way, what is going to happen is that, as you can see here, if I press next, the conversation now is going to start. But of course, if you have this remaining time, that is to say, you are not using the entire 45 seconds, instead of pressing the button next, I recommend you to take your piece of paper, right, that you always have with you, and start summarizing on that paper this reading passage. Because as I say in the response, what you're going to be doing is to summarize this and to summarize the conversation. So, well, if you have more time here before the 45 seconds are over, well, take your piece of paper and write down on that paper what is going to be more or less your summary, right? Well, I'm going to say that the university is planning to shut down its bus service because of this reason, right? Everything that tells you here, everything that this reading passage is about, summarizing, okay? Very good. Then, after the 45 seconds are over, the computer is going to take you immediately to this second menu. As you can see here, well, you have the conversation, right? It's an audio clip. Now, dear students, very important. As you can see here, I have the option to reproduce, right? I'm so sorry for the for the bell. It's just like I live in this apartment. Well, not important. So as I was mentioning here, what happens is that you have this this thing, right? You have the opportunity to reproduce. As you can see here on my screen, I am able to reproduce this clip, this audio clip, right? The topic, as I say, the conversation. Now, on the exam, this is not possible. By the way, you cannot actually reproduce your own material. The computer does it for you automatically. But it's to say, when you're trying to summarize this, okay, dear students, you are not able to do so. What you're able to do is, as I say, the computer reproduces this by itself. You're not able to, okay? So please, when you are on this part, don't expect that you're going to have, let's say, time for you to decide to reproduce this, because that is not the case. What you can do, as I say, is to wait, because the computer reproduces this automatically, okay? But as I said, you cannot reproduce it. Of course, in this case, I can, because it's a simulator, right? It's not the actual exam. But I'm telling you that on the exam, everything is automatic. When you come to this, the voice in your headphones, right? As I told you, there is a voice in your headphones that says, okay, now that you have arrived to this point, you're going to listen to a conversation of two students discussing this topic, right? Sorry for the bell again. As I say, the idea is that there's going to be, in this case, well, people, right, saying, well, in this case, I'm going to be, well, the voice is going to say, right, now you're going to listen to two students discussing this topic, and you're going to be able to listen to a conversation of these two students saying something about the conversation, etc., right? You're going to listen to these people. Now, after you listen to these people, dear students, okay, so after the voice says that, you're going to listen to this conversation. As I said, you're going to listen to the conversation. Let us listen just for a while, more or less what the conversation is going to be about, okay? Let's see.
Now listen to two students discussing the announcement.
So did you hear that the university is cutting its transportation budget and ending all bus service?
I did hear that, but it's no big deal, right? I mean, the university is also compensating all students with $50 vouchers for public transportation. The vouchers can be used on, like, the subway and public buses. So, it sounds like there won't be a big problem.
Are you kidding me? This is going to be horribly inconvenient. I mean, like, first of all, there's no public transportation to the DeWolf Science Center. It's far away from any subway and bus station, and getting there will require a 20-minute walk through some of the worst.
Okay, very good. We're not going to listen to this completely because it's, as I say, not necessary. But I think that you get, right, more or less the idea and the complexity of this conversation. That, as I say, it's very simple. It's because just the students are discussing what they believe about the bus service. It's a very simple thing. It's not actually very difficult. So as I say, after you listen to this, what's going to happen? The computer, the software is going to take you to this new menu. Okay, so after you listen to this, you have merely, as I say, like more or less 1 minute. This is always about 1 minute, 1 minute and 30 seconds, something like that. So after you listen to this, the computer is going to take you to this menu. Okay, and this is the menu. It says, the female student expresses her opinion about why she disagrees with the university's new policy. State her opinion and explain the reasons she gives for holding that opinion. You have a preparation time of 30 seconds and 60 seconds in order to respond, right? Very good. So as you can see, dear students, this is the time when you have, of course, all time in order to respond and etc. So when you come to this part of the exam, as I say, the voice in your headphones is going to say, okay, now that you have read and listened to this material, please start preparing your response after the beep. And there's going to be a sound like beep, right? And when you listen to that, your 30 seconds for preparing your response have already started. Now, what you have to do in your preparation time, as I say, take your sheet of paper and start summarizing the reading passage and also the conversation. As I told you, in the conversation, you have taken notes, right? Because you are not able to listen to this conversation twice. So while you are listening, at the same time that you are listening, you have to take your notes. So when you come to this part of the exam, where you have to actually prepare your response, here you use those notes that you have taken about the information in the conversation. And with that information, you prepare the response, as I say. Okay, it's a very simple thing, a very simple procedure. So you take your notes, you say, okay, and of course, I have a structure for you, don't worry. I'm going to show it to you. But let me show you, okay? But don't worry, I have a structure for you to more or less organize your response, etc. But in basic terms, that is what you have to do. You have to summarize the reading passage, and you have to summarize also the conversation, okay? Fantastic. So this is the time for you to make questions. If you have some question, please tell me with regard to the information on the second task, what you have to do with regard to the menu. Is there any question, dear students, please, so that I can help you? Selena, Claudia, Romanes, any question with regard to the second task? Questions? No? No questions? Okay, so I think that there are no questions. Very good. Great. So as you can see, that's it, right? Now, let me show you examples. I know that, of course, through illustrations, this is way easier to comprehend. So let's go and let us now read and listen to an entire task so that we can, of course, perfect all details and things that we have not understood completely. So let me just open this here, and we're going to listen and we're going to read to a second task, okay? Here I am, okay? Great, here I am. So here, okay, so let us read this first passage, okay? Here I have it. I'm going to paste it here in the chat box if you want to read it with me. I'm going to be reading this aloud anyways, don't worry. But there you are, okay? So I pasted this material to the chat box if you want to read it there. But this is more or less what a reading passage would look like on the exam, okay? As I say, it's about a topic related to a university. And in this case, let's see, okay, what this reading passage would be about. I'm going to read it out, okay? It says the following. The university is planning to offer free Spanish courses this trimester. Due to an influx of exchange students from Spain and Latin America, starting this trimester, the university will be offering free Spanish courses, free Spanish language tuition for interested parties. Participation in these courses is limited, however, and preference will be given to those students taking part in activities directly related to the exchange program. Go to the university website for further details. Okay, that's it. So as you can see, very short, right? It didn't even take for me 30 seconds to read this. So when you read it in your mind, it's going to be way easier, right? So don't worry about it. So after you read this, as I say, the computer takes you to listen to a conversation on the same topic we just read. So let us listen to the conversation on this topic. And as I say, please try to take notes. If you have a sheet of paper nearby you, take it and also take a pencil. And while you listen, because by the way, as I say, you have to take notes, while you listen. That is to say, at the same time you are listening. You are not going to receive a special time for you to take notes, sadly. So while you are listening, you have to take your notes, okay? So please take your piece of paper, take your pencil, and please take your notes while we listen to this conversation on this decision of a university to offer free Spanish courses. Let's see.
Now listen to two students discussing the Spanish classes.
What do you think about the Spanish courses the university is offering?
I'm not sure. I mean, last semester they did the same thing with an IT course and it was booked out within 10 minutes of the registration from going online.
You think it'll be the same for this?
Well, yeah. Spanish is a popular language to learn, and look at what it says about the preferences given. There are going to be loads of students who fit the bill for preferential access.
Well, I'm going to give it a look anyway. I might get lucky.
Sure. To be honest, I think it would be better if they didn't make the course free. A lot of people will sign up just because they don't have to pay anything, then not turn up to half of the classes. If you have to pay for something, you're more likely to use it.
I'm not sure. I mean, this way it's accessible even to poorer students.
I guess so. I suppose I'm still annoyed that I couldn't do the IT course last semester. I really needed the chance to brush up on my computing skills.
All right, great. So, as you can perceive, I think, by yourself, it's a very easy conversation, right? They are discussing, as I told you, the same topic we have read. In this case, we read that the university is planning to offer free Spanish courses this trimester. And of course, in this case, they are somehow limiting that to people who are directly engaged with this interchange programs. Now, in the conversation, we listen to two people, right? A main speaker and a secondary speaker discussing this particular topic. The main speaker in this case was the female speaker, right? If you identify her, was offering her opinion on this subject. And she was also, as I say, offering some reasons why she believed that it was better if these courses were actually made paid. That is to say, people should pay for these courses instead of making them free. That is what she was trying to argue, and she offered some reasons for thinking that way. Great. So now that we have read and we have listened to this, as I say, you have 30 seconds to prepare your response. And imagine that I have done it, okay? And as I did last time, I'm going to show you my response to this task. And you're going to be able to perceive what type of structure I am using for delivering my response, okay? So let us listen to my response, try to catch my sentences, my structure that I'm going to be sharing with you later on, okay? So let us listen to my response to this task. Notice that the only thing I'm going to do is to summarize the reading passage and to summarize the conversation. I'm not going to offer my opinion. I'm not going to say if I believe this is a good idea or if I am, I don't know, against the student. I'm not going to say anything with regard to what I think. I'm going to be a journalist. I'm going to be imitating a journalist, and I'm going to be merely summarizing the material. Listen. In the reading passage, we observe that the university wants to offer free Spanish courses since next trimester to all students, but especially to those who are engaged with exchange programs. On the other hand, we also observe a student who disagrees with this modality because she considers that just as it happened with the IT classes, so many people, just because the courses are free, are going to register and many students are going to stay out of the lessons. She also considers that given that Spanish is a very popular language, many students will also be super interested in learning this language and many people will simply stay out of the lessons. She also considers that the university should make these courses not free but pay, and that way just the students who are really interested in these courses will take part of them and not just the students who, because the courses are free, get into. Great. So as you can see, in 1 minute, what I did was to respond to this question by summarizing the reading passage and by summarizing as well the conversation, which is read and listened with you. If you notice, as I told you in my response, I avoided giving my opinion. I didn't say, for example, if I agree with the university or if I was more on the student's side. That is to say, with her opinion to make these courses paid instead of free. I didn't say if I agree or if I disagree. I didn't take a position in this case. Why? Because as I say, sadly, in this task, in the third one and in the fourth one, our opinion is not welcome, because in this case, they are not that interested in our ability to defend ideas, but they are interested in our ability to comprehend material, to make a synthesis of those materials, and to somehow mix them and to make a rational summary and comprehension delivery of both materials. So as I say, please, in this response, in this task, never say your opinion, never augment something, because maybe you are tempted in this case to complement the student's opinion with your own information, with your own data, with your own knowledge. And sadly, as I say, that is not something you should do as well. Never complement, never take out something important. The only thing you have to do is to summarize, respecting the information that was mentioned there, not changing it, not altering it, but merely, as I say, summarizing it. Okay, let us go with a second illustration before I show you my. Oh, let us go to the template, and then I'm going to show you the. Oh, I think that we can go to the second illustration. Very short. Okay, so let us read another topic. Okay, as I say, this also corresponds to a second task of the speaking section. And in this case, as you can see, it is about campus fitness center to close. So let me paste this to the chat box. You can read it there if you want. And I'm going to read it aloud. Okay, so we have 4 or 5 seconds to read this. It says, the campus fitness center will permanently close at the end of this semester. This decision was made by the university administration in coordination with representatives of the Students Association. Unfortunately, the building currently housed in the center is very old, and the university can no longer afford the cost of maintaining it or providing heat and air conditioning as required. Furthermore, the popularity of the center has declined since the university formed partnerships with several private fitness centers in the city. These partnerships mean that all full and part-time students can access 5 privately owned gyms across the city at no cost. Okay, so this is the passage, the reading passage. After you read this, you're gonna immediately listen to a conversation that you have to take notes about. Remember, take your piece of paper, take your notes as you listen to the conversation of these two students discussing the same topic we just read. So let us listen to what they say, and let us try to identify especially the main speaker's idea and reasons for holding that particular idea. Okay, let's see.
What do you think about this announcement?
To be honest, I'm completely opposed to the plan.
Really? Why?
Because shutting down the fitness center isn't really going to save much money. I mean, sure, the building is really old, but even if it isn't used on a regular basis, the school still has to maintain it. They have to make sure it is safe and that it doesn't become a fire hazard or something like that.
I didn't think about that.
Right, and even tearing the building down will be expensive because of all the construction workers they'll have to hire. Plus, once it's gone, we're going to need to replace it with something new, so we shouldn't shut down the gym just to save money.
You make a good point.
And it's not like all the students can easily use the gyms in the city. The closest one is a 30-minute drive from school. How are people who live in dorms on campus supposed to reach them if they don't have their own car?
You know, I took a taxi to one of the gyms and it cost nearly $20. I can't afford to pay that much money every time I want to exercise.
Exactly. And even if you can afford to pay for a taxi, it will be really challenging to get one if you want to exercise late at night. I don't think that was really considered when the decision to close the fitness center was made.
Okay, very good. There you are. So now it's time for us to go and listen to my response on this particular question. Okay, we read, we listened. Now listen to my summary of both materials. Okay, let's say. To begin with, we have seen in the reading passage that the university plans to close the campus fitness center permanently because they consider that nobody uses it, and because they consider that students can go to the private gyms that they have hired across the city, and also because the maintenance costs for these fitness centers are too high for the university. On the other hand, we have seen that a student disagrees with this because he considers that this is not going to save money. The university will still have to maintain the buildings, and maybe these buildings are going to provoke a fire, and that is going to cost a lot of money. He also considers that If they want to demolish it, they will have to pay workers, and that is also going to cost a lot of money. He also considers that the alternative gyms are not easily reached by other students because they are far away from the university, they are too expensive, and many people who work out by night will not be able to find a taxi. Great, there you are. So, very good. Now you have listened to both of my responses and illustrations for you. And I think that you are now capable of understanding this structure that, if you notice, is the structure that I was following in my responses. That is super easy to follow, super effective. So please let us talk about this. What is the structure you should follow in the second task? Here you have it. It also contains 4 different steps as in the first task. I'm going to start like this. To begin with, in the reading passage, if you notice, this was always the phrase that I used in order to preface my response, right? The first thing I said was always this. To begin with, in the reading passage, right? And after this, I summarized the reading passage. I offered my summary of the reading passage, right? After I finished my summary of the reading passage, I always went to the second step. On the other hand, right? That is a phrase that I always used as a transition, if you noticed, right? When I always finalized my summary of the reading passage, I said, on the other hand, right? Por otra parte, on the other hand, and I started my summary of the conversation. That's what I did, no more than that, right? I started, well, on the other hand, we have listened to 2 students discussing, discussing this idea, right? I'm going to give an example. So to begin with, in the reading passage, right? And I said, for example, we have read that the university is trying to shut down the fitness center because they consider that nobody uses it and they consider that it is too expensive to afford the maintenance cost of these buildings. On the other hand, right, as I see, or as you can see, I moved to the second step. On the other hand, por otra parte, we have listened to 2 students discussing this topic. One of them says that she disagrees with this idea, or he disagrees in this case with this idea, because he considers that these buildings will still have to be maintained by the university. If you notice, dear students, the third and the fourth step are simply a reminder for you that in your summary, dear students, okay, listen to me, in your summary, you always have to mention those reasons or arguments that the main speaker used in order to defend his or her opinion. As you can see, it says first main speaker's reason and second main speaker's reason. Because as I say, they normally offer 2 reasons to defend their positions. For example, in the last illustration we listened to, the main speaker said, right? On the other hand, we listened to 2 students and one of them says that it is a bad idea because, right, and he gives his first reason, because he considers that the university will still have to pay for those buildings. That is his first reason, right? And if you notice, what I'm doing in my summary is to mention that reason or argument he's giving. And I'm mentioning also, of course, all the details that I can remember and that I took notes about that are concerned in this particular point. For example, he believes that the university still have to pay for that, for those buildings, and he considers that nobody is actually reluctant to maintain them, right? After I summarize that, I move to the second reason the main speaker postulated. He said, for example, secondly, people nowadays believe that these private-owned gyms that the university offers as an alternative are very far away from campus, right? That is his second argument, because that is what he said, right? I'm not giving my opinion here. I'm not trying to change what the speaker said. No, I'm just trying to be very loyal to the information as I receive it. And I'm saying what he said. The speaker said, well, people believe that this is not a good idea because these private gyms that they are offering us as an alternative are very far away from campus and it's very difficult to arrive, right? And then after I offer this second idea or reason of the speaker, of the main speaker, remember, the rest is, as I say, I mention all the details and all the things that I managed to remember and to write on my notes that I can, of course, use to support all this summary I'm doing. Because, of course, when you have more time, what you can do is to mention all details, all things that you remember the speaker said, in order to support your response and to make that even better, right? So as I say, that is what you have to do. This is the structure. It's very simple. 4 steps to begin with in the reading passage, and you summarize the reading passage. You say, we have listened, or excuse me, we have read that the university is planning to shut down the fitness center because they consider nobody uses it and it's super expensive to afford. On the other hand, right, second step, we have listened to two students discussing this topic, and one of them says that he disagrees with this idea because, right, and I move to the third step, because he considers that these buildings are still going to represent a very high cost for the university. And secondly, because he considers that these private gyms that the university offers as an alternative are too far away from campus, right? That's the response. As you can notice, it's very simple. And of course, you can augment some details to the arguments the speaker mentions, but apart from that, nothing else. Remember, never saying your opinion, never augmenting something of your own to the response, but merely fulfilling the role of a journalist. Is there any question, dear students, with regard to the structure, something that I could clarify with regard to the second task? Please tell me. Selena, Claudia, Romanev, any question with regard to the second task? Questions? No? Take notes on this, okay? Take your notebook and write this down, or if you want to, you can take a picture, I don't know, a screenshot or something, and because you're going to use this tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to practice for the second task, okay? It's not going to be on Friday or something. No, it's going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to practice for the second task. So please, I recommend you to be there, to be present in tomorrow's class, because we're going to apply everything we have learned tonight. We're going to practice for this task. We're going to read a lot of passages. We're going to listen to a lot of conversations, and we're going to practice a lot, okay? So no questions then, right? With regards to the structure, something that I could clarify here with regard to the template. It's very easy, I think, right? Great. Fantastic. So if there are no questions, let me here give you a very short recommendation. So for this section, dear students, you must be very general and concise while summarizing both materials you will receive. Nonetheless, if you're going to emphasize in one item, let it be in the listening item. Namely, spend more time summarizing the conversation you just listened to. This is very important. If you, for example, are thinking, okay, where should I spend more time? Should I spend more time summarizing the reading passage, or should I spend more time summarizing the listening passage? My response would be, obviously, try to summarize with more time and invest more time and summarize your listening passage, that is to say the conversation, with more emphasis than the reading passage. Why? Because the reading passage is obviously easier to summarize, and the reviewers know that. So if you manage to offer a very good summary of the listening part, the conversation, you're going to receive more points. And also, the listening part is something that you, of course, have to think about and to make sense of in order to, let's say, blend it or to combine it with the reading. So as I say, if you're going to, and it's also a part of the task in which you receive more details, more information, more things to discuss. So as I say, if you're going to spend more time on one part of the materials you received, always summarize the listening part or the conversation with more emphasis. That is to say, spend more time there, mention more details, take your time. But in the reading, you should do it very rapidly and very generally, okay? Not taking too much time, okay? So as I say, very important, when you are summarizing this part, try to always summarize the listening passage, the conversation, investing more time there with more emphasis than in the reading passage. That, as I say, you should summarize very quickly and very, very much generally. You shouldn't try to be very specific in your summary of the reading passage because it's not that important, okay? So second, it's not necessary to, for example, talk about the interchange of dialogue, because many people have noticed what they do in their responses is that they say, for example, we have listened to two people discussing a conversation. One of them said this, and the other responded this. And when he responded that, he objected this. And later the other responded this. And they always talked about this interchange of dialogue. And that is something that you shouldn't do, dear students. Why? Because as I told you, you shouldn't actually mention the second speaker. Don't mention the secondary speaker. Merely focus on the main speaker. And that is going to avoid any problems as, for example, saying, well, the main speaker said this, and then the secondary replied this, and then she responded this, right? That interchange of dialogue is something that you can avoid because, as I say, you don't have to mention the secondary speaker in your summary. merely concentrate on the main speaker. Talked about the main speaker, his opinion, her opinion, and the reasons he gives for holding that opinion, okay? That is what you have to do. Well, great. Those were my recommendations for this task. Is there any question, dear students, with regard to the second task? Something that I could clarify, please tell me. No questions? Okay, very good. So tomorrow we're going to practice for this. Please don't miss tomorrow's class. It's going to be very important because we're going to practice for this. And please don't go. I'm gonna take your assistance for you to receive your certificate at the end of these classes. And please, oh yeah, Romanes, a question? Okay, very good.
I don't have questions, sorry.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you very much, Romanes. Fantastic. So please help me with your kind responses to the traditional poll that we always feel, dear students. You know that I always appreciate your responses. So please help me with that. And now I'm going to take your assistance, okay? So please, when you listen to your name, say present, okay? Here we are. Just give me a second. So, is here present our dear Elsa Maria? Okay. What about Claudia Hernandez? Okay, Claudia was here, but she told me that she was at her job, so I guess she's not able to speak. But don't worry, Claudia, I got you. I got you present. What about Selena Vasquez?
Present.
Thank you very much, dear Selena. And finally, we have Leslie Romanev.
Present.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Very good. Well, thank you very much for your presence then, dear students. It was a pleasure to be with you. Yeah, I got you, dear Claudia. Don't worry, I got you. Thank you very much. And well, I'm going to be seeing you next time when we finalize with this task, okay? And thank you very much. See you next time. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you very much. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.